The war between Earth and the Zari Dominion had ended 6 months ago, but peace still felt like a lie. Millions had died. Cities on both sides had been burned to ash, and now, after years of fighting, a fragile ceasefire had been signed. As part of the treaty, both sides agreed to send ambassadors to each other's worlds, but everyone knew what it really meant. Hostages, political pawns, show of trust with hidden knives behind every smile. And so, Princess Thalaria, Velzar, daughter of the Zari Emperor, heir to the throne of stars, was sent to Earth. She arrived in a sleek black starship, 20 meters long, glowing with gold light and humming with alien technology. The Zari were proud of their ships, their power, their bloodlines, and Thalaria was no exception. She was tall, with silver skin that shimmered in the sun, long black hair tied into a crown-like braid, and bright golden eyes that never blinked when she spoke, were living armor silver and purple plates that shifted like liquid, shaped to her body. It responded to her thoughts. It could defend her, fight for her, even kill for her, and she had an attitude that could cut sharper than any blade. Waiting on the landing pad was her new Earth liaison, Sergeant Elias Ward. He wore no armor, just a clean military uniform and boots worn from years of war. His hair was short and gray at the edges. A long scar ran across the side of his neck, half hidden by his collar. When Thalaria stepped out of her ship, her nose wrinkled in disgust. So she said, looking Elias up and down, "This is the best Earth has to offer." A half-broken grunt. Elias said nothing. He simply nodded. Thalaria tilted her head. "Do you understand me, soldier? Or do you need me to speak slower?" Still, Elias didn't speak, only turned and motioned for her to follow. She laughed. A mute. Brute. How fitting. The two walked side by side through the landing zone, guards watching from both sides. Cameras followed their every move. The first alien royal ever to walk on Earth, she was already making headlines. Inside the diplomatic building, Elias showed her to her private quarters.
The room was luxurious by Earth standards,
but simple by Zari taste. She walked around, the room sneering at the furniture, which she muttered. Humans still use dead trees. Elias stood silently by the door. She turned to him. "Do you ever speak, Sergeant?" Elias looked her in the eye. "When there's something worth saying?" For a moment she blinked surprised, but she recovered quickly. "Ah," she said. "So the beast has a voice. And wit. How rare." Elias didn't answer. He just gave a short nod and left the room. The next day began Thalaria's tour of Earth. She visited human cities, met politicians, shook hands with world leaders, and gave long, perfect speeches in flawless English in public. She smiled. In private, she mocked everything. She called Earth's space fleet scrap metal with dreams. She called Earth's leaders diplomats pretending to be kings. She even mocked Earth food, calling it animal feed with seasoning. And through it all, Elias was at her side, silent. Watching, one evening, after a long dinner with UN officials, Thalaria sat in her quarters, polishing her armor. Elias stood near the window, reading a datapad. "I don't understand your people," she said suddenly. "You fight like animals, yet you think you're civilized. You have no noble blood, no ancient houses, no dynasties. What do you even fight for?" Elias didn't look up. "We fight for the ones beside us. That's enough," she laughed. "Psh! A low cause. No wonder your kind crawled in the dirt for so long." This time, Elias did look up. His eyes were calm, quiet, tired, maybe, but steady. "You think strength comes from bloodlines," he said. "We learned it comes from loss." Thalaria's smile faded for just a second. The days passed. One evening, the princess walked into the main hall of the Earth Embassy wearing full armor. The living metal flowed across her body, glowing with soft light. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Going to war, Your Highness?" "No," she said, smirking. "Just reminding everyone who I am." That night, during a reception, she made another public comment about Earth soldiers. "I once studied Earth's war history," she told the press. It's impressive how far humans have come from throwing sticks to throwing bombs. Still, their warriors remain unchanged. Loud, simple, and short-lived. Reporters laughed nervously. Cameras flashed. Elias stood behind her, expression unreadable. After the event, she leaned close to him. "I hope you're not offended, Sergeant. It's nothing personal, just truth." Elias didn't respond. But something in his eyes had changed. Just slightly later that night, they received new orders. They were to visit Luna Base 7, an old research station on the moon, for a security check. A routine diplomatic photo op. Valeria rolled her eyes at the assignment. "More rocks and dust," she said. "Your species loves pointless symbols." Still, she boarded the shuttle with Elias, 2 pilots, and a technician. The flight was smooth until it wasn't. Somewhere above lunar orbit, the shuttle was hit. Not by a storm, not by a system error, by plasma fire. A surprise attack. Systems failed. Lights died. The pilot screamed something about rogue Zari extremists. Before anyone could react, the shuttle crash-landed near an abandoned lunar facility. Dust and darkness swallowed everything. Elias woke up first. His ribs hurt. Blood in his mouth. Checked the others. 1 pilot dead, the rest injured, and Thalaria. She was trapped. Her armor had locked up protective mode. She lay still on the cold floor, breathing heavily. The suit had sealed her in, thinking it was saving her, but it was choking her instead. Elias rushed over, pulling out an emergency toolkit. The armor's surface was glowing red-hot, pulsing with energy. If he didn't act fast, it would kill her. "Don't touch me," she gasped, barely conscious. But Elias didn't listen. He worked quickly, disabling the external shell, finding the right neural breakers, bypassing Zari tech with human tools. In 15 minutes, he had the armor stripped down and pulled away from her chest. She coughed, sucking in air, shaking, pale. Elias covered her with his jacket and sat her upright against a wall. She looked at him, eyes wide, no longer proud, just quiet. For once she had no words. Elias said nothing. He just stood up and started checking the comms. The moon was silent, cold. Dust blew slowly across the broken metal floor of the old lunar station. Princess Thalaria Velzar, heir of the Zari Dominion, sat against a cracked wall, breathing hard, her armor her living, shining symbol of power lay in pieces beside her. It had almost killed her. Sergeant Elias Ward stood nearby, repairing a broken comm device. His hands moved fast, steady. He didn't speak. He hadn't spoken much since the crash. Thalaria had been trained. In 100 forms of combat, she could speak 12 languages. She had once commanded a squad of elite warriors. Yet now, sitting in the cold, her body sore and bruised, she felt small. She looked at Elias. "Did you know how to remove my armor?" she asked. Elias didn't look at her. "I read the Zari battlefield manuals during the war. Studied your tech, learned where it fails. You studied us?" Her voice was soft, surprised. "I had to," he said. "What?" "Because your people killed half my squad with that armor." "What?" Silence followed. A silence that felt heavier than gravity. They were trapped in Luna Base 7, an old Earth station from before. The war, the structure was stable, but power was weak. The air system worked, but just barely. One of the pilots had died in the crash. The other was unconscious. The technician had a broken leg. It was just Elias and Thalaria who could move. Thalaria tried to stand, but fell to one knee. Without her armor, she was just like any other person, tired, injured, and human enough to bleed. Elias reached out a hand to help. She paused, then slowly took it. His hand was warm, strong, real. They sat together in the control room, using flashlights and emergency heat pads. Elias shared protein bars and water. Thalaria accepted them without a word. She stared at her reflection in the broken glass of the console. No armor, no crown, no glowing eyes. Just a tired girl with bruises and tangled hair. "This base," she said, "it's primitive." "It's old," Elias replied. "From Earth's early days in space?" Thalaria looked around. "And Yet ... it still works. Some things built by hand last longer than those built for show, he said. She looked at him, wasn't smiling. He wasn't mocking her. He was just telling the truth. That annoyed her even more than mockery would. Have they spent the next day trying to boost a signal? The main antenna was broken. Elias climbed out of the base with a portable transceiver, attaching it to a tall pole using rope and tape. Thalaria stayed inside, monitoring the frequency. The temperature outside was minus 150 degrees Celsius. Ilya stayed out. For over an hour, he returned. His face was pale from cold. Fingers numbed, she helped him remove his gloves. He didn't protest. You risked freezing, she said. If I didn't, he said calmly, we'd die here. You could have ordered me to go. I don't give orders unless they're earned. She fell silent again. That night, she sat alone in a corner of the room, her arms wrapped around her knees. She whispered something in her native language. A prayer? Maybe regret? Elias didn't ask, just handed her a warm drink and walked away. On the third day, signal was still too weak, but something worse arrived. Before help could come, Elias was repairing the outer power grid when he noticed movement on the scanner. 3 unmarked ships had landed on the far side of the crater, not Earth ships. Not official Zari ships, either rogues, pirates, extremists. They were coming toward the base heavily armed. Elias ran back inside and locked the entrance. Thalaria looked up as he entered. What is it, Trouble? She stood. Is it your people? No, he said. Yours. Her eyes widened. They're not loyal to my house. They won't care. We're both targets. She opened the weapons case. Her armor was still there, but broken. Unusable. She reached for a plasma pistol. Elias stopped her. It's fused, he said. Took a hit during the crash. What do we have? She asked. He held up an old pulse rifle and 2 grenades. That's it, she said, shocked. He looked at her. We'll make it work. The next hour was tense. Elias set traps, using wires, gas lines, and even the broken parts of Thalaria's armor. He blocked doors, set up cover. Loaded his rifle, Thalaria helped. Quietly, carefully. Her hand shook only once, as they worked side by side. She finally asked, Why are you doing this? Why risk your life to protect me? He didn't look at her, because I said I would. I mocked you. I disrespected your people. You were scared, he said. So you wore pride like a shield. She blinked. He said calmly. I watch what people do, not what they say. The first shot hit the wall outside. The enemy had arrived. 3 attackers, full Zari combat suits. Heavy weapons. Elias took position at the main door. He fired short bursts. Precise. Efficient. Thalaria stayed near the side wall, throwing a grenade at the second entrance. It exploded in a flash of heat and sound. The invaders tried to breach. One got in, but Elias tackled him with a steel rod, knocking him unconscious. The second was taken down by a trap they'd set, shock wire wrapped in thermal tape. The third retreated. For now, after the fight, Elias sat on the floor breathing hard. Blood ran from a cut on his arm. Thalaria cleaned the wound with gauze. Her hands were gentle. You're different than I thought, she said. He raised an eyebrow. I thought you were like the rest. Loud, violent, proud. But you're ... double quotes, she paused. ... still. He didn't reply. I always thought silence was weakness, she continued. It's harder to listen than to speak, he said. They sat in the dim light, both quiet. Later, as they waited for possible reinforcements or a second attack, Thalaria found herself studying Elias. Not as an enemy, not as a lesser being, but as someone she couldn't understand. He had no armor, no titles, no wealth. Yet she had never met anyone stronger. She looked at her armor broken, cold, useless. She finally understood. Power isn't what you wear. It's what you do when it's all stripped away. That night, as they sat by the wall, Elias asked, softly, "Why did you hate us so much?" Valeria didn't answer for a long time. "My father," she said finally, "told me humans were dangerous, uncontrolled, that your kind would destroy everything you touched." "Do you still believe?" "Him." She shook her head slowly. "No, now I wonder. What he's afraid of?" The moon was quiet again, but now it felt like the calm before a storm. Inside the damaged base, Sergeant Elias Ward checked every corner, every panel, every tool. His hands moved with purpose. His face showed no fear. He had fought wars before. This was nothing new, but for Princess Thaleria Velezar, everything had changed. Her armor was gone, shattered in the crash. Her power suit, her status, her protection, it was all useless now. She wore simple fabric and an Earth military jacket Elias had given her. It was too big, but warm. She sat at the edge of the main room, watching Elias move like a ghost, quiet, steady, never complaining. She remembered how she used to mock him, call him a brute, a fossil, a servant. Now she followed his lead, not because he was loud, because he had earned it. They had survived the first attack. The rogue Zari extremists had lost 2 men, but 1 had escaped. He would return with more. Elias knew it. "We have 12 hours, maybe less," he said, while working on a defense barrier. "If the signal boost worked, Earth Command will send help. But there's no guarantee." Thaleria nodded. "Fight." Elias looked up. "You already did." She blinked. I want to help more." He raised an eyebrow. "And help me reroute the solar panels. Need backup power." She followed him without a word. Outside, the lunar surface stretched far in every direction. Sky above was black, dotted with stars. Earth hung like a glowing marble in the distance. Elias climbed the side of the base and started reconnecting the old panels. Thaleria handed him tools, held wires, tightened bolts. Once, her fingers slipped, and she nearly fell from the ladder. Elias caught her wrist. Their eyes met for a brief moment. She looked away, cheeks flushed. "Thank you," he nodded, pulling her up without saying anything else. Back inside, they activated a few more lights. The base looked a little less dead now. Thaleria sat beside the technician, who was still recovering from a leg injury. She gave him water, changed his bandage, and even helped him laugh. Elias saw it all from the other room. She's not the same, he thought. Something shifted. Later, she approached him. "You didn't ask why I mocked you," she said. "I didn't need to," Elias replied. She frowned. "Why not? 'Cause pride speaks loud when fear is close?" She looked down. "That's what I was, afraid of being weak." "You weren't weak," he said. "Just untested." That night, they sat near the heat lamp, sharing the last of the energy bars. The base's battery was dropping. Time was running out. "I was trained to command fleets," she said, "to lead armies, but I've never been this afraid before." Looked at her calmly. "That's when you learn who you are," she asked softly. "And who are you?" We took a long breath. "Just a man trying to make sure others get home." The enemy came again, this time in force. 5 rogue Zari fighters landed just beyond the crater. Their weapons were heavier. Their scanners were stronger. They'd come to finish the job. Elias watched them on the old monitor screen. 5 versus 2, Thaleria whispered. "And we're low on weapons." Elias nodded. "Then we don't fight fair." He handed her a backpack with makeshift charges made from battery cells and metal shards. "What is this?" she asked. "A trap. We lead them in, then split them up. And then we survive." The battle began in silence. The first 2 rogues breached the outer hatch. One hit a tripwire. An explosion tore through the corridor, knocking him unconscious. The second moved fast, but Elias was faster. He used a fire extinguisher tank to blind him, and knocked him out with a steel pipe. Thaleria lured. Another one through a side door, then locked him inside a pressure chamber. She activated the door's manual override, sealing it. 3 down. She whispered through the cum. 2 more, Elias replied. They moved through the shadows. Working together, the 4th attacker found Thalaria in the engineering room. He aimed a plasma rifle. She dove behind a console. Elias appeared behind the rogue and slammed him with a pipe. But the last enemy was waiting and fired. The blast hit Elias in the shoulder. He dropped to one knee. "Elias," Thalaria shouted. She grabbed the fallen rifle and fired 2 bursts. One hit the enemy's leg, the other his weapon. He fell. Stunned, she rushed to Elias. Blood soaked through his sleeve. "Stay with me," she said, holding pressure to his wound. "I'm fine," he grunted. "You got shot." "I've had worse. You did good." She smiled slightly, tears in her eyes. "You'd better not die now. Still haven't said thank you." He leaned back against the wall. "You just did." The base was silent again. 5 enemies all down. No more threats. But Elias was weak, and the others were still injured. Thalaria took command. She reinforced the doors, rechecked the signal, managed the wounded. She worked for hours, never stopping. She looked at Elias, lying on a cot, breathing slowly. "This man," she thought, "taught me more in 3 days than my royal tutors did in years. Not with books, not with books, not with threats, but with action. With silence." 12 hours later, the light blinked on the console. The signal had been received. Rescue ships were inbound. When the Earth rescue crew landed, they found Thalaria standing at the entrance with a weapon. In hand, guarding the injured, her armor was still broken. Her jacket was too big. But she stood tall. Elias was carried out on a stretcher. Weak but alive, Thalaria walked. Beside him. The whole way. Not as a princess, not as royalty, but as a comrade. Back on Earth. Thalaria gave a speech to the Human Zari Council. She stood in a clean diplomatic hall. No armor, no makeup, no glowing symbols. "I came to Earth thinking I was better than humans," she said. "I was wrong." She looked at Elias, sitting. In the front row, he showed me that strength is not about blood, or armor, or power. True strength is being willing to protect others even when no one is watching. Even when you're mocked. Even when you're alone. I once wore armor that could crush stone. But when it failed, I found a human who didn't need armor to stand. She bowed her head. To him, I owe my life. That night, she visited Elias in the recovery ward. He sat on the bed, arm in a sling, reading a book. She sat beside him. "You made me speechless," she said. He smiled. "That's a first." She laughed. "I'll return to my world soon. But I won't go back the same." Elias nodded. "Good," she hesitated, then reached into her bag and handed him something. A piece of her broken armor, melted, scorched, but still glowing faintly. "Keep it," she said. "A reminder." He held it, then looked at her. Of what? That even the proudest mask can break, but real strength, it never does. The skies above Earth were calm. The war was over. Treaties were signed. But for Princess Thalaria Velzar, the real change had happened inside her. She had returned to the Zari Dominion. Back to her world of gold halls, glowing towers, and endless protocol. Servants greeted her. Advisors bowed. Ministers praised her survival. But none of it felt real anymore. Not after what she had seen. Not after what Sergeant Elias Ward had shown her. In the royal court, her father High Sovereign, Velzar stood tall in his shining ceremonial armor. His voice echoed through the marble halls. "You faced disgrace, daughter. You lost your armor. You served among humans. Yet you returned stronger. We are proud." Thalaria didn't answer right away. She remembered Elias's calm voice. His stillness. His strength without pride. She looked her father in the eyes. "I didn't lose anything," she said. "I shed it." The room fell silent. The old nobles looked confused. Whispers spread through the court like a storm. "Closer. You speak with strange words. What do you mean?" I found what power truly is, she said. And it is not armor. It is not shouting. It is not bloodline. She took a deep breath. It is action, courage, patience. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Everyone listened. That evening, she returned to her chamber and opened the metal box Elias had given her. Inside was the piece of her broken armor, cracked and burned. A silent reminder. Next to it was a message. Strength is what remains when the armor is gone. EW, she smiled. Meanwhile, far away on Earth, Elias Ward returned to duty, quiet as ever. He declined medals, avoided ceremonies. When reporters asked him about the princess, he simply said, "She's tougher than she looks." But when the Yuan Zari Council invited him for a diplomatic exchange, he accepted, not because he wanted attention, but because Thalaria had asked, personally, too. Weeks later, Elias stepped off a shuttle on the glowing steps of the Zari Capitol Dome. Soldiers stood in perfect lines. Nobles watched from balconies. And there she stood, no longer in battle armor, but in a simple travel robe. No crown, no weapons. That went. Arya met Elias with a small nod. You came. He looked around. Big welcome for a quiet guy like me. She smiled. They've never met someone who doesn't care about titles. He shrugged. Still don't. First meeting with the High Council was tense. Some Zari elders didn't trust humans. Others mocked Ilias's plain clothes and simple words. Earthlings are unpredictable, one said. They act without tradition, said another. Elias didn't speak. He just stared, quiet, calm. When it was his turn to speak, he stood and looked. At the council, I'm not here to win your favor, he said. I'm not here to bow or boast. He paused, scanning the room. I'm here because your princess fought beside me. Without armor, without title, and she didn't run. He turned slightly toward Thalaria. That's why I trust her. Silence followed, then slow murmurs of approval. The council didn't clap. That wasn't their way. But they didn't argue. Later, Thalaria walked with Elias through the Gardens of Light, sacred place where royal heirs meditated before taking the throne. She sat on a low stone bench beside him. I'm next in line to rule, she said. They expect me to lead with power. You will, Elias replied. She turned to him, not the way they mean. He nodded. Let them talk, he said. You already know who you are. That night, Thalaria had a dream. She stood on a battlefield wearing her old armor. The air burned. Voices shouted, but she couldn't move. The armor was too heavy. Then Elias appeared, standing in silence. He didn't speak. He just held out his hand, and the armor shattered, piece by piece, underneath. She stood, in simple clothes. Free, light. When she woke up, her decision was clear. The next morning, she stood before the Dominion's assembly, the largest room in all Zari space. Hundreds of leaders watching. The galaxy's eyes focused on her. I was born into power, she said, but I had never earned it. I thought my armor made me strong, but it only made me forget who I was. She looked around the room, calm, steady. On a broken moon, I met a soldier who taught me without ever raising his voice. He taught me how to lead, not by command, but by example. I now ask for your permission to serve. Gasps filled the hall. Serve, one counselor whispered. She's royalty, said another. But Thalaria raised her hand. I will live among the outer colonies. I will protect the weak. I will build, not rule. Her father stood slowly in your crown. She turned to him. If I ever wear it, I want to be worthy of it. In the weeks that followed, Thalaria disappeared from the capital. News reports showed her helping build shelters on a cold moon station, repairing power lines, training both humans and Zari to live together. She smiled more, laughed, even. But she still kept the broken armor shard with her. Always. One day, while she was helping teach children in a refugee camp, a small girl asked her, Are you a princess? Thalaria smiled and knelt beside her. I used to be. Why not anymore? She paused, thinking, because someone showed me there's more power in helping, than in ruling. Months later, back on Earth, Elias Ward received a message. No title, no seal, just a short note. Thank you for teaching me how to be human. Come visit when you're ready. T. Elias folded the paper carefully and placed it next to his medals. He didn't smile, but for the first time in years, he wrote back. It was a quiet evening on the small moon of Valis III, far from royal palaces or military bases. The skies above were pale purple, and the twin suns were setting slowly. Thalaria stood on a cliffside. Watching the sky, her clothes were dusty. Her hands were stained from work, her boots were worn out. Yet she stood tall with a calm power that no armor could match. Behind her, children played. Refugees smiled. Colonists rebuilt. It was not the life she was born for. She had chosen. Inside the modest camp station, a visitor arrived. No fanfare, no greeting party, just a man in a gray coat. With a healed shoulder and sharp eyes, still quiet, still strong, Sergeant Elias Ward stepped into the room. Thalaria turned. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she smiled. You came, Elias. Nodded, you called. They sat on an old bench beside the small garden she had helped plant. The moon air was thin, but peaceful. I got your letter, Elias said. Didn't expect to hear from royalty again. I'm not royalty anymore, she said. Just someone trying to make things better. He looked around. The place was poor but alive. The people waved at her like she was one of them, leader without titles. You've done more than make things better, Elias said. You changed the game, she looked down. I didn't do it alone. They sat in silence for a while. Neither felt the need to fill it with empty words. Later, they walked through the edge of the camp, past shelters, farms, and repaired drones. People greeted them warmly. Sergeant Ward, a young Zari boy said, You're the one who saved the princess. Elias gave a small smile. She did most of the saving. Thalaria raised an eyebrow. You never change, do you? Why fix what works? He replied. That night, the two sat around a fire pit, joined by a few colonists and young students. The stars above looked close enough to touch, someone asked. Is it true you once faced 5 Zari warriors with nothing but a pipe? Elias just shrugged. Don't want Arya answered. That's true. And he didn't flinch. A child asked, Weren't you scared? Elias looked into the flames. Of course I was. But fear is part of the job. Courage is what you do anyway. Group fell quiet, thinking on his words. After most had gone to sleep, Thalaria and Elias stayed by the fire. You're still teaching? She said. Not really, he replied. Just talking. Maybe that's the best way to teach. He glanced at her. You've come a long way, princess. She smiled at the old nickname. I lost everything, then I found myself. There was a pause. You ever regret it? Elias asked, giving it all up. Thalaria shook her head. I used to think power was in fear and respect, but now, I think real power is when people believe in you because of what you've done, not what you wear. He nodded slowly. Then you've learned the lesson. She looked at him. And, what about you? What comes next? I don't know, Elias said. I've fought all my life. Maybe now. It's time I build something instead. Thalaria tilted her head. Then stay. He looked at her unsure. This place needs people like you, she continued. Not soldiers, builders, mentors. Leah said nothing for a long moment. Then, I'll think about it. The following week, Aaliyah stayed. At first he repaired equipment, then he helped train guards. Then he started teaching self-defense to the youth. He rarely spoke much, but they listened when he did. And Thalaria, she walked beside him daily. They planted together, argued sometimes, laughed more often, and in the silence between them, bond grew, not of rank, not of titles, but of respect, and something deeper. One day, a large diplomatic ship arrived from the Zari homeworld. Out stepped a royal messenger, clad in golden robes. He bowed low before Thalaria. Your father requests your return. The throne is yours now. You are needed. Thalaria said nothing. Elias stood behind her. Watching quietly, after a long silence, she replied, I serve better out here. The messenger looked shocked. The throne is not where I make the most difference, but the people are. Here too she turned her eyes to Elias. I am not a ruler. I am a guardian, like him. The messenger left in silence. News spread fast. The princess refuses the crown again. The silent soldier remains on Valis 3. Some mocked, some admired, but none could deny the results. Valis 3 grew stronger. Refugees turned to citizens. Disputes became agreements. And in the center of it all, two quiet figures, led by example, never shouting, never demanding. One evening, Thalaria showed Elias something special. They stood on a cliff where two moons crossed in the sky. Below, the camp's lights glowed like stars. This was where I first realized, she said. Realized what? That I didn't need armor to lead. I didn't need a throne to matter. I just needed act. To listen, to act like you. Elias looked at her carefully. You don't need me to do that anymore. Maybe not, she said. But I want you here anyway. They stood in silence, the moon shining above them. No more words were needed. Years later, legends spread of the silent sergeant and the princess without a crown. Children learned about the battle on the moon base. Leaders studied the peace building model of Valis-3, and somewhere far from politics and parades, a man and a woman worked side by side, leading without speeches, teaching with silence, protecting without armor.